All right, welcome to another middle of the week. It's Wednesday, and man, November's getting away from us. We're like halfway through November, on our way to Thanksgiving in a few weeks, and then Christmas, and then the New Year, and then there we go, off to 2024. So it's coming quick. Hope you're taking advantage of things. Man, I think I mentioned this to you before. Every time I put some coffee in the microwave just to heat it up a little bit before I come out here, we got this one of those Google things with pictures all over them, and man, I end up staring at those pictures there of my kids and my grandkids, and it's like how fast time goes, right? It just reminds me to slow down. The two pictures that I was looking at today, I think all of them happen to be grandsons, some from Tennessee, some from here, and just they're probably 10 years younger. And you think, man, how fast that seemed like yesterday. And so I think it's good. When I look at this calendar as it flips by us, and I think it's important that we redeem the time, that we slow down, that we enjoy the life that we have right now. Instead of trying to hurry to get somewhere else, we just enjoy right now, this moment, this day, this hour. And so it's just something that you have to work at, to be in the moment. And so just a little sidebar of encouragement for you. And man, let's jump into some truth today. We are, I think this is about the middle of the book, really, of Luke, which I'm not sure if that's good or bad for you guys. I'm enjoying it. Listen, I could teach on one verse a morning probably and just be happy, but I like to get through things, so we're seeing it in chunks of paragraphs. And so we are about to flip the page on chapter 11 at the end of today, Lord willing. So we're there. Let me give you a little preview of where we're going. This is about hindering the kingdom. This was Jesus' great frustration. It's not even a good word. He didn't get frustrated. One of the things that he came against hard and heavy was those hindering people from getting into the kingdom of God. And so you and me know that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? He's the only way. He's the only truth, and he's the only way to have an abundant life. It's him, nowhere else. And yet, so he walks among these group of Jewish people, and they don't know what they have. Or maybe they do, and they're suppressing it. But there is a clear path to heaven. It is Jesus. And it is to recognize that Jesus is God. That it starts there. Now, you and me aren't there presently with him, but we read these stories. We see these things. We have to come to a conclusion. Do we believe that Jesus is the Messiah of God, that he is the Son of God, that he is that? Do we believe that he himself died on a cross to cover your sins and my sins because he knew that we couldn't do it? And that he was resurrected again to show us that we can have life in this life anew at that moment that we die to self, then we're raised to look like Jesus. And so we live an abundant life because the old man is dead. We're now free to live the good life, right? And to believe that and to follow him is what it means to be a Christ follower. Now, along the way on this broad road that you and I are on, Jesus talks about the broad and the narrow way. You come across, they're not the atheists, they're not the agnostics, they're not even the cultic type people. These are just people who don't know the gospel, but they're moral in some ways on the external side of things. That's the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, they weren't truly moral because no one truly is. You asked, I listened to someone do an interview the other day, and they were on the street, and they asked someone, "Are you a good person?" And they said, "Yeah, I'm a good person." Well, okay. How many times have you lied? Oh man, I don't know. Okay, well then, what do they call people who lie? Liars. Okay, so you're a liar. And he walks through this litany of things. Did you ever steal anything? Yeah, one time. Okay, what do they call people who steal things? She goes, thief, right? So he said, so far you say you're a good person, but you just admitted that you're a liar and a thief. And it just goes on, that you're an adulterer, because he talked about, have you ever lusted after anybody? Went all through the whole thing. I watched this woman begin to break down in tears as she began to realize that she thought she was good and then realized that she wasn't. And so that there is this broad road where the Pharisees and these want people to believe that they're good, right? And even on that broad way, because we think, well, I mean, I would recognize the broad way here. Man, one of the first times we were leaving Peachtree City, that's where our son is. You start heading up the highway there, and then they have these white little barricades right in the middle, and you have to choose which side you're going to get on. And at some point, it's like, man, I don't know which one to go. And so we thought, well, man, maybe it's going to lead us somewhere else. And so we jumped into one of the ones and went on, and we realized about a mile down the road, they all just went back to the same place. Why it divided, I don't know. But it was a different, it was a little different. I mean, different lane in the deal. It's permanent. It's still there. Same thing, if you're leaving, if we're heading up 59, heading to Chattanooga, I can stay on 59. I can also diverge and get on US 11, but they're going to the same place. Sometimes they kind of even intersect, and you're sharing the same road. And so I think sometimes this is what that broad road looks like. So you're on the broad road, and it's not like this super highway, and you see all the pagan and everything else. There's a few little divergences on there, not the narrow road, but there's one of them that say, hey man, try this, try the Islam, right? Try Buddhism, try all of these things. Hey, just try the morality thing. Try atheism and just believe that, right? But it's the same broad road. This is what Jesus is coming against right here. They all go to the same place, and he's pointing it out to them. So yesterday we saw that Jesus, they saw him heal or deliver a man who had a demon that made him mute, and so his tongue was loosened. There's the healing there. The demonic was removed, and so a lot of the crowd was cheering. And somebody else said, "No, he's Beelzebub, right?" And that sparked that conversation about he's doing what he does by the power of Satan. That's what the Pharisees wanted to believe, because if he was doing it by the power of God, then they would know that their life is somehow insufficient. And so they have to believe, well, it's and so they've been pushing that propaganda. You see it all through the scriptures once you start looking. And so then they said, well, give us a sign that you're not from Satan. And that's when he said, man, I'm right here. Look at all the works I've done. And he mentions Jonah, and he mentions the Queen of Sheba, and he says, listen, when she saw Solomon, something greater than Solomon's here, but when she saw Solomon, his wisdom and his wealth, she understood that didn't come from man. That was a God thing. And she began to hear about the God that Solomon was in love with. Jonah, when they heard his story that he was in the belly of a whale and was rescued and came out and he's here and God sent him, listen, Jonah wasn't the greatest man on the planet, right? He was even mad about having to preach repentance. But there he was, and they believed and they repented. And he said, and something greater than Jonah and Solomon are here. He said, me. And you've refused to hear it. So then the Pharisee invites him to lunch, right? As soon as he comes in, they're all cleaning their hands and doing the ceremonial cleansing thing, letting the water trickle down. Jesus just goes straight, to the table and begins to recline. And they're like, he didn't follow the rules. And Jesus begins to chastise them and talks about, he blisters them and talks about their external nature of things. And we won't take the time to read it. But he pronounced woes on them and cursed them in that sense. And so he chastises their self-righteousness. That's what it is. Like he said, you're all clean on the outside. Man, you're a wicked generation. That's what he called them. So then, in the middle of all of this conversation, I told you it wasn't just Jesus and the Pharisee at the table himself. There were others there as well. And so there's a lawyer in the room, right? Now, a lawyer is potentially a Pharisee, but he's different than the Pharisee in the sense that he's a student of the law, right? So we might say that you have someone who considers themselves a pastor, and they're doing that service. And then you also have someone who is teaching pastors, who potentially was a pastor, but now he's like a theologian. He's a professor at a seminary. And he's still a pastor, but he's like this professor guy. That's kind of what the lawyers were. They were the experts in the law, right? And so it says, and here we jump into it. He says in verse 45, one of the lawyers said to him in reply, teacher, hey, when you say they're whitewashed tombs, and you say that they're a wicked generation, he said, that's insulting to me too. You know that, right? And so Jesus goes, oh yeah, I'm just getting to you. right? Verse 46. But he said, yeah, woe to you lawyers as well. Yeah, you're right. I know. It stung a little bit, didn't it? Well, hang on, because I got more to tell you. Woe to you also. And so here we go. And so we're launching into this thing, and so let's just see how it unfolds. He says, for you load people with burdens that are hard to bear. They were the architects, if you will, of all of the other commandments. They took the 10 commandments that Moses had given, and then they made 300 and something more commandments out of it. And so what you see is that these lawyers were the architects. They said, well, yeah, okay, well, this is what he means. When he says, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Here's 15 things that we can't do, in order to, or it says here, that you shall not hate. Well, here's 40 things, right? This is how they were doing. They were just adding external things so that they could prove to them. All the while, it really is about the heart. The whole 10 commandments, the first 4 talk about loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. The last 6 talk about loving your neighbors yourself. The reality is we can't keep the law. We can't do that. We can't keep any of it because within us, and that's what Paul said. Paul said, hey man, when all of a sudden I saw the law, those things that I didn't even, it awakened in me this dark side. And those things that I knew I should do, I didn't want to do. And those things that I knew I was supposed to do, I didn't want to do them. And so it showed him his sinfulness. That's the purpose. They have used it to say, this is how you get to heaven. This is what it looks like to be people, the elite, the elect of God. This is what it looks like. And so this is where he's beginning to go. And so verse 46 is the beginning of that. You load people with burdens that are hard to bear. I mean, man, you've got them where they can't, on a Sabbath, which is supposed to be a day of rest, you've got them where they can't even go so many steps outside the house. And there's so many things they can't do. And you got a guy that might have an ox in the ditch and you won't let him get them out. I mean, it's wrong with what you're doing. And he says, while you yourselves will not even touch the burdens with one of your fingers. You're not going to keep the law. You know you don't, you dirty, rotten dirtbag. But yet you're telling everybody else this is the way to do it. It's the hypocrisy of that Jesus was coming against. And then he says in verse 47, woe to you, for you build the tombs of the prophets, and it was your fathers who killed them. So you are witnesses, and you approve of the deeds of your fathers, because it was they who killed them, and you build the tombs. Right? So that's a little cumbersome. If we were to go to Matthew, maybe we will. Maybe we'll just jump in there real quick. This is what he says. He says, woe to you, Pharisees, for you build the tombs of the prophets and decorate the monuments of the righteous. And you say, if we had been living in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partners with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So I testify against you that you are sons of those who murder the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your guilt of your fathers, you snakes, you offspring of vipers. How will you escape this sentence of hell? Therefore, behold, I'm sending you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Some of them you will flog. Listen, what's Jesus saying there? Listen, you're just like them. Just because you go back and decorate the tombs to make yourself feel better, like, oh, we wouldn't have done what our fathers did. You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. And he's prophesying here. He's saying, hey, you're doing it to me. You're already plotting my demise. You already know that I'm a prophet of God. I've given you enough signs. You want to attribute it to Satan so that you can kill me. And I'm going to send you prophets after me. I'm going to send you the apostles, and I'm going to send you others. And you know what you're going to do with them? You're going to kill all of them too. So this is a blistering deal where he's saying, hey man, you're no different than your fathers, right? So they're like, well, we wouldn't have done it that way. But you haven't changed the course. You're still like your fathers. It's like what happens at the flood, right? The people of the flood, some of those people that taught them the wickedness and continue to propagate that, so that when God looked at the people at the time of the flood, he said, I'm sorry that I made them, for all they do is wickedness, always, only, continuously. There were those who were doing that before them and they perished, but these caught the brunt of it. These caught the flood. Some of the others, they lived and died, but these caught the flood. And this is what he's saying here. He's saying, hey man, it's all coming down on you. This is what's happening. You're as guilty as they are. And so So then he says, verse 48, so you are witnesses and you approve the deeds of your fathers. Verse 49, for this reason also the wisdom of God said, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will kill, and some they will persecute, so that the blood of all the prophets shed since the foundation of the world may be charged against this generation. That's what he's saying, right? It's in the past. You haven't diverted. You're still doing the same thing. You may not have killed the great prophets, but anybody that tried to come and share a message of truth and grace to you, you shut them down. That's why that's why I'm saying you're a wicked generation. You know why you're the wickedest generation? Because God himself, me, Jesus is saying, in the flesh, walking among you, you want to kill me too. Right? That's what's the point when he said there's someone greater than Jonah, someone greater than Solomon is here. He said, you're still blind. You're just like your fathers. If anything goes against your almighty plan, you're going to destroy them. Now, then he comes down to this, and this is where it gets kind of brutal. Well, verse 51, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah. He's like, hey, from Abel, where Cain killed him, to Zechariah, where your fathers did, and every prophet in between who was killed between the altar and the house of God. Yes, I tell you, it shall be charged against this generation. All of the guilt there. You can say that was your father's all day long, but you're still doing the same stuff, and I'm charging it to you. You know better now, and you haven't changed, and so it's all coming down on you, right? And it did, and it will. That's what happened. Now, then he says this, woe to you lawyers. He's not through. He gave 3 woes to the Pharisees. He's given 3 woes to this lawyer. For you have taken away the key of knowledge. You had the sacred scriptures in your hand, and you have perverted them, and you have taken truths and you have added to them, so that now it's skewed and people don't understand it. So you've muddied up the waters, and so in a sense, he says, you've taken the key of knowledge away. You know the right way. You read the scriptures. You consider yourself an authority of it. Yet you've muddied the waters. And so you don't now, when you speak, you're not speaking the truth of the prophets. You're speaking all this pride and arrogance about rule keeping and all of these things and about what it looks like on the outside. I'm disgusted with this whole thing about the outside. It's what happens in the heart, and you can't see it. This is chastisement. Are you feeling it? This is what he's saying to him. For you have taken away the key of knowledge. You didn't enter. And you know what else you're doing? You're hindering others from entering also. This is, Jesus told in Matthew, he says, listen, you've made a person twice the son of hell. Because you give them rules to keep, and now they're trying, and they think they're good, but on Judgment Day, they're going to realize that they weren't good, and it's your fault. You've made them twice the son of hell. They were already heading there, and man, they could have repented, but then you made them believe that they didn't have to. That if they just kept these rules, they're good. And so they kept the rules and they felt good and they were high and mighty, only they're still heading to hell. And now they won't even listen to the truth because they think they're good enough. Man, that's a blistering indictment, isn't it? Then it says this, when he left that place, the scribes and the Pharisees began to be very hostile and to interrogate him and about many subjects, plotting against him to catch him in something he might say. Do you think they listened to him? No. Now they're like, okay, well, let's just follow around, see if we can catch him saying something against the law so we can just further indict him. What do they want to do? They want to kill the messenger because they don't like the message. It's easier to just clean the outside. It's easier just to be moral. It's easier just to be better than my neighbor and feel good about myself. The hard part is to realize that I'm a dirty, rotten, stinking little sinner in service and deserving of hell, and that I can't clean myself up. That I desperately need the hope and grace that is in Christ and Him alone. This is the gospel that's not being preached today. We're preaching one that says if you just, fill out the card or you walk the aisle or you parrot a prayer, that you're good. And while those things may be avenues that get us there, it is always the heart that has to be changed. There has to be a brokenness in the heart, a recognition that I am a sinner and I can never be anything but that. And if God doesn't help ain't coming. And I'm crying out to Him for forgiveness, that He will forgive me of my sins and that He will let me yet live. That's the gospel. And listen, there's a lot of churches out there who are, when they get to the end of their days, they're going to be held accountable because they muddied the waters. And they hindered people from coming to the gospel because they made them think that they were okay simply because they parroted a prayer or something. It's always a heart change. It's not the outside that defiles a man. It's what's inside the man that defiles a man. Man, that's the message today. Hard and heavy. Lord bless you. Have a good one. And man, Lord willing, I'll see you in the morning in chapter 12.